Welcome to the Broncos Podcast with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. It is a victory Sunday night. It will be a victory Monday. Your Denver Broncos, 8 is enough. As I predicted, as most predicted, they finally break that brutal losing streak to the Raiders at 8 games. First win against their rival since 2019. Pat Surtain making a case for Defensive Player of the Year. And how about Bo Nix standing up on the sideline, holding firm in a discussion/argument with Coach Sean Payton? If you can't see the juxtaposition between that and what happened last year in Detroit with Russell Wilson and understand that Payton really likes one quarterback and didn't like the other, I can't help you then. But this is a good sign, folks. Him standing firm. Now we know that C on his chest is not just an accessory. It is not decorative. It means something. And his teammates, it means something to them too. But this is the kind of competitive fire you want from your quarterback. This is the kind of performance you want from your quarterback. The Broncos at 3-2, they're in it. They're relevant. Who knows where the season's going to go? But these are the kind of defining moments we want to see from Bo Nix. This was by far his best game of the season. And not only that, he stands up to his coach, shows leadership qualities, and Pat Surtain and his defense, after an ugly first quarter, honor the 1977 Orange Crush with another impressive performance. And Surtain, with that pick six, I'm not sure it could have been more well-timed. So we're going to dive into all of that. Bo Nix, his development coming of age. Pat Surtain and his pick six. And what do they got coming up this weekend? Is 4-2 possible for the Broncos? You should be tempted, Broncos Country. You should be tempted to enjoy this, because we haven't had this much hope around here early in a season since Fangio's last year at 3-0 that quickly spiraled out of control. So we're going to get to all of it after the break. Have you been hurt in a car wreck or injured at work? What are you waiting for? Give my friends at Hoggett Injury Law a call. Their motto, with us, it's personal. I've known Darby Hoggett forever. We became good friends. Many of his clients become Darby's good friend. You don't even have to pay Darby up front. If your case goes as planned, Darby will be the one writing checks to you. So again, if you've been injured at work or in a car wreck, give Darby a call. It's 1-833-HOGGATT. That's 1-833-HOGGET. Or visit the website at hoggettlaw.com. Bet Online, it's your trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on the $200,000 mega contest. Pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at a weekly prize and a share of $200K. When the game's over, head over to our online casino. Get in on that game of blackjack, maybe poker. Just unwind with one of their over 150 slot games. Head to the website today. Get in on the action. Bet Online. The game starts here. Welcome back to the Broncos Pod with Troy Renck. I'm your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. The Broncos improved to 3-2. They win third straight. They are in the mix. If you're going to do anything during the season, you have to play well in your division. The Broncos are now 1-0 in the AFC West. They went 3-3 last year, but they got swept by the Raiders. That did not happen today. That is off the table for the first time since 19. The Broncos beat the Raiders. And there was a vibe with the 1977 throwback uniforms, honoring the 77 team. I got on the elevator to go down toward the field, and who's on there? Tom Jackson and Randy Gradishar. I mean, you had a feeling like this game should be special. And it didn't look like it was early. But I want to go to the third quarter as a defining moment in Bo Nix' experience. Broncos are leading 20-10. Broncos have a chance to put the game away. Third quarter, 3rd down and 3, 45-yard line. Bo Nix drops back, throws a bit of a laser, probably could have put a little more air under it, to a wide-open Troy Franklin, his college teammate from Oregon. Franklin finds the ball, dives, drops it. He should have caught it. I would count it as a drop. It's debatable because he had to leave his feet. But as Bo Nix trots off the field, he and Peyton get into a very animated discussion. I'm watching, not this part, but I'm watching the fallout afterward. So the TV part shows you that they get into an animated discussion. At one point, Peyton's kind of hand to his chest like, basically saying, and Peyton would explain later, he flipped the play. He wanted the play to go to the boundary side. Bo went to the other side. And rather than back down and yes, sir, no, sir, I'm going to go sit down and be on the bench, put my head down, Bo Nix let Sean Payton have it. He was not having any of this. He was basically saying he was open. If he would have kept running the route, it would have been a touchdown. And then, Peyton's going back after him saying that, no, you've got to do this. And Bo wouldn't give in. And you know what? I loved it. I loved every part of it. Inject into the veins. This is a sign of the exact moment at 4:25 local time that Bo Nix became the Broncos quarterback. Until then, he was their quarterback in name only. He had one good series, the first series against Tampa Bay, 2 good throws against Tampa. Other than that, a lot of spotty play. The worst half Broncos quarterbacks arguably ever played against the Jets last week. But on this Sunday, Nix became the quarterback. He announced his arrival by standing his ground against Peyton. And by standing his ground, it feels like this franchise is no longer sinking in quicksand. That they have a quarterback. Now, he's got to prove it. But what I saw was leadership, fire, competitive. You know where you see that out of? Guys that play well in this game. Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Jake Plummer was here. We talk about John Elway. You got to have that little bit of that fire, that competitiveness. And it was so different. I'm watching it play out. So I'm going to go through it. So this happens. Nix is not conceding anything. Then he walks away. And then he goes over to Troy Franklin. And you can see him explaining, like, you should have kept going. And Franklin not totally agreeing with him. And then Cortland Sutton comes over. And I'm watching this through my binoculars in the stadium, in the press box. And Sutton's like playing the peacemaker. But, hey, okay. And then Peyton, here he comes to get involved. And Nix isn't having it then either. He's barely making eye contact with him. And then Peyton's making eye contact with him, pointing to his play sheet, saying, like, this is why. And then Nix finally gives up at that conversation, goes and sits down, and Peyton follows him over to the bench and is still pointing at him. And Nix still won't concede. It was great. I loved it. This is the Nix I saw at Auburn. This is the Nix I saw at Oregon. Nix did this with his dad as his head coach, Patrick Nix, in Alabama. They would get into spirited matches on the sideline. That is the full Bo Nix experience. Maybe it doesn't work, but this is who he is. His personality's coming out. And so what happens after that? Instead of caving and, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that and showing insecurity, he comes out on the next drive. He avoids a sack with an 11-yard gain. Then he ends up with a touchdown, jumping over the pile. And the next drive, he's throwing 29 yards to Sutton and then a 9-yard crossing route, a dart to Josh Reynolds. So if you think he was intimidated or felt badly or had regret or guilt, think again. All he did after that was play his best football. Another great sign. So why do we have a headline that says Bo Nix provides Ferris wheel? Because I asked Sean Payton about it. I guess they played it on NBC after the game. I questioned to him. And I asked him, describe what was going on with kind of this dust up between you and Nix on the sideline. And he said that he still has some Ferris Bueller in him we're trying to get rid of. And I love him to death. And that's our love language, going after each other. And I love the Ferris Bueller's Day Off movie. Love it. I think it's a fantastic 1986 comedy. Love the movie. Just the acting's fantastic. It's a little cheesy at times, but Matthew Broderick is just as the role of Ferris Bueller. You all know the famous line where it's like, Bueller, 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 because he's taking the day off from school to help his friend Cameron kind of get self-respect and hang out with his smoke show girlfriend as they go around the loop in Chicago to an art exhibit, to a Cubs game. He's singing in a parade, a Beatles song. They end up, his dad's Cameron's Ferrari ends up going through the glass house. Anyway, Peyton, I think, is a little off on this, but the point he was trying to make is that Bo maybe he's a little too cute, thinks he knows a little too much, and we need to make sure he stays within script. But there was a respect about it where Bo didn't back down. Peyton didn't decline to answer the question. And think about last year with Russell Wilson at Detroit. Russell Wilson goes off script. They get into the red zone. He goes off script and throws a pass to Cortland Sutton. Total wrong coverage, a play they had in practice. and Sean Payton goes nuclear on the sidelines on Russell Wilson. I mean, loses it. National story. Him just undressing Wilson on the sideline. And Wilson just stood there and took it. I think in part because of shock. And you can read about this in my column at the denverpost.com columnist. Look it up, please, if you have a chance. I appreciate it. But he stands there in shock, number one. And two, I think he knows that if he goes back at Peyton, he mouths off, he's going to get benched, because he had learned after the Kansas City game before the bye, they basically said, we're going to bench you if you don't restructure your contract. I still, if I'm Wilson, I would have gone at him, because who cares at that point? And then he ended up playing one more game against the Patriots, and the inevitable conclusion of him getting benched. But it's just, if you think back to that scene in Detroit, Peyton, and Wilson just standing there, stone-faced. Davis Webb kind of stuck up for him. And it happened, honestly, at the Chargers game the week before, where they got into it, and it's similar, where Wilson didn't say anything. But if I'm Wilson, hey, I've been to 2 Super Bowls. I got a chance to go to the Hall of Fame. I get it. You're mad? Enough. Like, there's a point where you stand up for yourself. Again, and Nix wasn't having any of it. It's just, it shows you again how much more comfortable Sean Payton is with Bo Nix than he was Russell Wilson. Because that conversation last year was the end of Russell Wilson by all intents and measures. And today, a rookie in making his 5th start has a 5-minute interaction over a play between Peyton and teammates and Davis Webb. It went on for almost 5 minutes, not game time, but actual 5 minutes. And he wouldn't back down. And that stubbornness can hurt you, but it also shows leadership. I talked to Mike Burton, the fullback, after the game. He played with the Saints with Sean Payton and Drew Brees, and they would get into it. And he said, I love this competitive fire from my quarterback. You want to see that from a leadership position. And he said, with Brees and Peyton, it always came from the same place of, we're arguing because we're both crazy competitive and we want to help the team win. And Burton felt like it was the same thing today. They're getting mad at each other because they both feel like they're doing something that can help the team win. These are good signs, folks. They're good signs. Now, again, it doesn't mean that Bo's got it figured out, but he's arrived as their quarterback now. It's not decorative. Like, this is who he is. And I want to see that personality, because after he got pissed off, and I don't think he curses. I want to ask him that, but deeply religious, my guess he doesn't curse. I know Sean Payton does. And I'm fine with that. I have no issue with that. But I want to see that attitude and swagger from Bo Nix, playing with that confidence. And Sean Payton finally did him some favors and ran a game plan that fit his skill set. So Nix finishes, 19 of 27, 206 yards, couple of scores, and they run the football. Javonte Williams, like 55 yards on the ground. He ends up, look at the final box score here. But Javonte leads them in receiving. I'm going to double check that here on my stats. So Javonte, 13 carries, 61 yards, 4.7. That's his second straight week over 4 yards a carry after 13 weeks of being at 3 yards a carry. And then you got Williams, 5 catches, 50 yards. He was their leading receiver at 50 yards. Humphrey, 48. Sutton, 32. Franklin had 1 for 20. This is how you win with Bo Nix. 19 for 27, 206, 2 sacks, no picks. You can win this way. It can be a little boring, but you can win this way. But you got to run the ball. You got to commit to running it. You look at running back carries in this game. You got 19 carries for 83 yards. That's decent. You got Nix, 8, but he had some kneel downs in there. And Mims had 1 reverse for 17. For the love of God, get him 4 more touches. The guy is fiber optics on a team with a bunch of dial-up players at times. Get him some more yards. Get him some more touches. But this is how you win with Nix. And Nix showed me something today by standing up to Sean Payton. And Payton showed me something by not losing his mind over it and respecting Nix. And that relationship is critical for not only this season. And if they make the playoffs, it'd be an unbelievable story. If they go 7-10, 8-9, and Nix is continuing to play well, that's the key. And to watch that interaction and the respect between those two, very, very encouraging. But the reason they won, with all due respect to Bo Nix, it came down to one player, and it wasn't a quarterback. Who was that? We can get to that after the break. Never a bad time to enhance your home. Maybe you want to make it more comfortable. Maybe you're just selling it. Glass doors can add a nice touch. That's where Jamie Haig comes in. He and his wife Lisa run RBJ Glass. Listen, Jamie put a glass door in our house. We love it. We've had it for over a year. He does great work. He stands behind it. RBJ Glass installs European shower enclosures, standard shower glass. They do mirrors, window, and glass replacement. They do insulated doggy doors, office cubicles, and small commercial storefronts. They have competitive prices and offer discounts to veterans, senior citizens, and have even accommodated some single parents. So what are you waiting for? Give my friend Jamie a call. It's Jamie of RBJ Glass, 720-883-3144. That's 720-883-3144. Or email Jamie at rbjglass2017@gmail.com. Welcome back to the Broncos Podcast with Troy Renck. I'm your host, Troy Renck for Denver 7. Thank you for joining in wherever you are, car, laptop, at work. It is a Victory Monday if you're listening right now. It's going to be a Victory Tuesday, and they got Chargers coming up. But let's talk about what changed this game. One moment changed this game with 8:43 remaining in the second quarter. The Broncos are getting it handed to them. Gardner Minshew, the Minshew Magic, he's like 9 for 9. 70-some yards. He's running the ball, and he beat them when he was with the Jaguars several years ago. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I like Minshew. He's a perfect backup quarterback for me. Is he going to come in here and beat the Broncos? They're going to lose 9 straight to the Raiders? What? I mean, come on, get real. Can't. So I mean, you're the fake ID team in the league if you're the Broncos and you lose to the Raiders at home. Like, you are not real. You're a fraud as a contender if you can't beat the Raiders at home. And one moment changed everything. Minshew rolls out. He's looking for Brock Bowers. It looked like his line of vision got altered a little bit, but he overthrows Bowers, who had a huge touchdown, a 57-yard touchdown to open the game. And Bowers looked every bit the part. 8 receptions, 97 yards in that touchdown. Minshew goes to throw it to him, and he overthrows him by roughly, 5 yards over his head into Pat Surtain's belly. And Surtain wasn't even guarding him. He's behind the play guarding Jacoby Myers. He catches it and then barrels up the sideline. And I thought, because the NFL loves to buzzkill stuff there, you see the flag go down, and Jonah Ellis just pulls and just runs over Gardner Minshew. And I'm like, are you serious? They're going to call that as holding? And Pat Surtain cruises down, 100-yard interception return, the second longest in Broncos history. To Aqib Talib had a 103-yarder in 2017 against Dallas. And you're like, are you kidding me? This is going to get called back? You're down 10-3 still. At least you kept them off the board. But they wisely realized that, and one of the refs must have seen it, Minshew pulled Ellis down onto him. There was no holding. There was nothing illegal that Ellis did. Minshew just wisely tried to essentially flopping in basketball to make it look like he got held and pushed down. The refs pick up the flag. So it goes from a possibility, if that ball is thrown accurately to Bowers, going down 17-3 with 8:43 left in the half. And instead, it's 10-10. So you go down, the possibility of being down 14 to being tied. That changed everything. Changed everything. And I said this when Surtain got his contract. It's not enough for him to have sticky coverage. I've said the line for 2 years, and I'll keep saying it. He turns opposing receivers into Chick-fil-A. They're never open on Sunday. And now with picks, he has an opportunity to enter that conversation of Defensive Player of the Year. You're not going to win it. Now, Stephon Gilmore won it as a corner, but you're not winning it as a corner with no picks. He's got to think in terms of 4 picks, 5 picks. Well, guess what? You got 2 today, and one's a pick 6. That is how you win Defensive Player of the Year. Sticky coverage, best corner in the game, and a pick 6, and a second. Zach Allen said afterward when we were in the locker room, he's got my Defensive Player of the Year vote. Now, the players don't vote on it, but you get the feeling, and I said this earlier this week. I said it during the game. Like, he's in the conversation. There's a lot of hurdles to clear here. You got to be on a team usually that wins. I mean, the Broncos go 7-10. I can't see a scenario where Surtain wins the award. He would have to have like 7 picks. But 2 things are happening here that we must note. One, Surtain has to take advantage of opportunities and get picks. He's doing that with 2. And Riley Moss is absolutely playing his ass off on the opposite side. He got his first turnover. And Moss it's not that he's like functional. He is just sticky right now in coverage. He is doing work. And so eventually you can't avoid Surtain if the guy on the other side is playing as well as Moss. And I'm not going to say a revelation, but he was good in the summer, but I couldn't have expected this. Now, he's got confidence for days. You want to talk about a kid that speaks his truth and believes in himself. That's Riley Moss. All day, every day that ends in Y. But the reality is you don't know what it's going to look like on Sunday, and he has delivered in every way imaginable. But Pat Surtain turned the game. It went from possibly down 17-3, the stadium going to muting the mic on our Zoom presser. This game is over because the Broncos offense stinks and the Raiders own them, and this whole old uniform and the 77 thing, it's all going to be for naught. What a buzzkill. Surtain pick 6 changed everything. And that's what great players do. When we say that someone's a playmaker, you can do that on defense. It's harder, obviously, but that's what great players do. And Surtain changed the game. So what does that mean going forward? Well, the Broncos, folks, at 3-2, we got something here. We got a little something here. I mean, you start looking at their schedule, what's ahead of them. I mean, there's some winnable games here. I mean, I'm not going to say they're going to be a playoff team. I picked them to win 6 games. But they definitely in position to win 8 or 9 right now because they've won a couple that I don't think most people expected them to win. That's at the Jets, at the Tampa Bay. That's 3 straight. Frankly, they should have beaten Pittsburgh. I never expected them to beat Seattle. But you look at who they got coming up now. Coming off a bye, Chargers are coming off a bye, so they're going to get healthier. So you're probably going to have a healthier Justin Herbert who's had ankle issues and plantar fasciitis issues. But you get a team that's dropped 2 straight. Chargers opened the season with a 22-10 win over the Raiders. Man, the Raiders are a mess too. Man, they're a mess. But I can't say that because that's who the Broncos have been for the better part of 8 years. They beat Carolina 26-3. Chargers then lose 20-10 to Pittsburgh, 17-10. They've scored 20 points offensively in the last 2 games. That sets up for the Broncos to win an ugly, low-scoring game. Jim Harbaugh is going to run the football. And that you can take that and know that's going to happen. But they're vulnerable. They're not a great offensive team. And defensively, they're okay. This is the kind of team, again, you beat at home. If you're a contender, you beat the Chargers at home. And then the Broncos turn around and go to New Orleans in what's going to be a hype matchup. If the Broncos are 4-2 going to New Orleans, Sean Payton, the prodigal sons, return home. Now you're talking. Now it's going to be some fun times around here. Now we got something because you go Chargers, Saints, Panthers. Of those 3 games, you've got to be thinking win 2 of 3. Put you at that point. That would put you at 5-3 at the halfway point, essentially at 8 games. Because then you go Ravens, at Chiefs back to back, home against Falcons, at Raiders, Browns at home, Colts at home, at Chargers, at Bengals, and then home against the Chiefs to finish the season. When you look at that schedule, the Browns game looks way more winnable than it did before the season. Raiders are a team you should sweep, even though they've never won in Vegas. I mean, you can start looking at the schedule now and saying there's definitely a possibility of between 7 and 9 wins. And if you got hot, and let's say the Chiefs have clinched, maybe you beat the Chiefs the last game of the season. But you look at this next grouping, Chargers at home, at Saints, Panthers at home. The minimum is win 2 or 3. Minimum. But when you think of the 2 you want to win, Chargers have to be one of them because it's in division. Again, your path to the playoffs is always playing well in your division and in the AFC to help you with tiebreakers. And maybe it never gets into that. But what we saw, folks, on Sunday, Broncos Country, allow yourself to enjoy it. You saw things you haven't seen. You saw a quarterback coming of age. You saw a defense that, again, after a very shaky first quarter, put its foot down and just to suck the life out of the Raiders, where they finally bench Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. I'm watching that team, and I squint, and I don't struggle to see their quarterback next year being Shedeur Sanders. I could see that very clearly, though, where they would draft Shedeur Sanders. I'm not sure that's a great place for him and his career long term, but I could 100% see Shedeur Sanders going to the Raiders because they have no long-term solution at quarterback. It's not Minshew. He's a backup, and O'Connell is, for me, he's a practice squad type player. For the Broncos, huge win. Bo Nix makes a stand with his coach, shows the respect, shows his leadership. Pat Surtain shows why he's the best player on the team. And the Broncos, folks, putting themselves in position to be a contender. Enjoy it. Folks, I could not do this pod without the folks from Mile High Sports. Nate Lundy, Big A behind the screen, watching his Cowboys. He's got his Mets. It's a tough day for him. If the Cowboys lose after the Mets got walked off, Big A is not going to have a big day. We've got RBJ Glass and Jamie Haig, and of course, Bet Online, and my guy A1 from day one. That is Darby Hoggett. Broncos Country. I do this pod for you. Happiness that begins with me. Go out there and have a great day.